Hello everyone. So welcome to episode 19 of Teh Tarik with Walid. So it's the second last episode for this season. So each season will have 10 episodes. So it's not by year or anything. It's just 10 episodes. So today we will be having former nominated Member of Parliament, Miss Anthea Ongs, with us, and she is truly an amazing person. You can just Google her bio, and actually don't, because it would make you feel bad about yourself. So she has done a lot of really amazing things in her life. But for the purposes of this session, thank you. I am doing better. So for the purposes of this session, she is a former nominated Member of Parliament, and the discussion will be centered around not only her experiences as a nominated Member of Parliament, but her opinions on Singapore politics as well, broadly speaking, because everything is political, of course. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to type them out, or you can DM me. I know I got a few DMs today, so if there's nothing, so yes, indeed, so let's go. So she has sent me the request, so let's go. Hi, Anthea.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Walid. Oh dear, the down lights at the back is really quite bright, no?
Yours, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, mine.
I think
Should
it's
I,
okay. I
should I,
think
do you want me to turn it off?
it's up to you. It's up to you. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, because my place is actually, I don't have white light at all, actually, in my...
Okay. Why is that, by the way? I know the Europeans like that. I'm not particularly fond of that. But why do you like it? My wife likes it also.
Oh, my parents hate it. My parents,
Okay.
my father especially, would tell me that we all need fluorescent lights, right? I actually don't turn on the lights a lot, right? I use candles. I use
Oh,
soft light. Yeah, I don't actually use fluorescent light. I find it a bit jarring, and
interesting.
I also feel like we don't have to see everything so clearly all the time, lah.
Wow, that is an unsurprisingly philosophical statement from you.
But if it's
So,
irritating, you can let me know. I'm not sure
no.
how bright it would be if I actually turn it off. So
No, it's not irritating. Don't worry. So whatever you're comfortable with. So thank you, thank you for coming on, and of
you're
course
welcome.
you are one of the most prominent NMPs, I think, in not just of the past few years, I would say ever. And I've only had one NMP on, former
Oh,
NMP on, and that was Quick Shawin, Miss Quick Shawin,
oh yes, of course, Shah.
and she's amazing as well. I would put you in the same bracket as her, together with Professor Walter Tessera, and maybe a couple of others. So yeah, I just wanted to
Thank you.
say that from the outset. So the first question is, there's a lot of mystique about the NMP, right? So I think a lot of, including myself, sometimes we ask, so how is it like in Parliament? I'm sure for instance, in where you guys are eating or resting,
Mm,
the PAP members are on one side,
yeah.
the opposition MPs are on the other side. Then where are you guys? Are you guys on your own, or do half of you go to the PAP, or is there some courtship going on? Do they try to court you guys? Because I assume that your votes are crucial, not in terms of deciding, because whatever the PAP decides will happen, right? But
Exactly.
your votes are crucial in terms of lending legitimacy, right? So can you just give us some insights into all of that? I know
Okay.
there's a lot in what I just asked.
No. I think
Yeah,
that's no. Happy to share. Happy to share.
yeah.
Interestingly, in the tea room at the Parliament House, you are right. So when you walk into the tea room, the PAP group is actually on the bottom, on the sort of the bottom left-hand corner of the room, and then my cohort, there was only WP. There wasn't PSP yet, right? So the WP group will be on the other far end of
Right.
the room, that is on the sort of the top right-hand corner. When we first joined, many of us would be, I mean, you know, we were very well looked after, so we would actually be sort of invited to join the PAP group during tea break. But I think over time, we somehow gravitated towards just taking the center spot, you know, in the middle of the room. And then, so we eventually form our own block, if we will. And it's really interesting to see who are the PAP MPs who will come and join us and sit and have a chat with us, including some of the ministers, who wouldn't. And then there would be the WP folks as well who would come and chat. Now, I think based on the issues that I raised, you would imagine I wouldn't be the most popular with the PAP MPs. but we're friendly enough. We're friendly enough. Also, I must say that it's not very easy to be super kawan with them, both WP and PAP, because as NMPs, we don't actually belong to a party, right? And we only get to see them, both sides of the MPs, both sides of the bench, once a month, and the tea breaks are really short. It's usually about 10 minutes, right? So yeah, you can't really be super kawan. But we're all friendly enough. But they are different. So with them, the blocks, you can see they have a real social relationship going on as well within the groups, right? I mean, and naturally because they belong to a party. To your point about whether, you know, whether there's some legitimacy that's given to us, you know, I wouldn't be able to sort of, you know, respond to that. At least not on behalf of the government, in terms of whether, you know, we actually give them legitimacy where our votes are concerned. But I would say that, you know, I think we do. We do in the sense that, you know, when I was invited for the first time to be an NMP, I actually said no. So yeah, my appointment was actually the second time I was invited, and I said yes. So yeah, I mean, I think with a lot of people, the vote of an NMP or even the NMP system on its own, whether there's legitimacy, it's still much debated, right? And I used to think that way, which is why I also said no the first time I was invited. Just based on the fact that, you know, the NMP system, to me then, I felt it ran counter to the democratic principles, right, of representation and accountability. And some would say that, you know, it was also perhaps established 30 years ago to appease those in the electorate about having diverse and alternative views, right, in a single party parliament then. But I changed my mind now. You know, I felt that there is legitimacy in the role that we play, and I won't go into so much details, but you know, I think the long and short of it is that there are definitely minority groups in a democracy. No matter how ideal the democracy is, it's still majoritarian by nature. Political parties will always need to get the majority votes. And so there will always be minority issues that whether you're opposition MPs or, you know, government MPs, you will be hard pressed to want to, you know, raise them, right? There's a political cost. There's a political cost to it. But for folks like ourselves, then there's no fear of losing votes. So I think maybe not so much about whether there's legitimacy in our votes, but I think more about the legitimacy that we bring as individual NMPs to the role that we can play in the chamber.
Right. Okay. Thanks. That was excellent, and you know the insights, especially, you know, and you know, it's not such a bad thing that you are not you are friendly but not super friendly with either the opposition or the government. I think NMPs need to maintain that distance, that neutrality, or at least appearance of neutrality, right? So is there lobbying going on, like from either the government or the opposition? Like, do they go to you, hey, are you going to vote this way, or would you please vote this way with us, or nothing of that?
No.
Wow.
Except So what happens in the tea room? I mean, there's lobbying going on for sure, right? And this happens actually across
Yeah.
the world, right?
Yeah.
The lobbying happens with the MPs, talking to the ministers. I myself have actually gone up to certain ministers that I really wanted to raise some issues with, right? In the tea room. Some ministers have also come to me after a certain bill that I spoke up on, or some speeches I've made, or some questions I've asked. Some to clarify, some to dig a bit further and maybe be a little bit sarcastic. But a lot of these interactions are definitely going on. And then, of course, in certain sort of less comfortable, maybe somewhat controversial motions that I may have raised, sometimes I might have ministers come and have a chat with me. Yes.
What's the tone of those chats?
Very friendly.
Oh, okay.
Very friendly, very friendly.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, and very, very friendly, very sort of persuasive.
Okay.
And so, but I think for me, it's interesting to see this not being that different to the corporate experience and the corporate landscape
Right.
I came from, right? 30 years of sort of being in senior leadership position, and all that negotiation and all of that. You can kind of smell,
Right.
The intent,
Right.
of this this talks, right? And this sort of conversations.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm glad for those experiences, lah.
Right.
That
Okay.
helped me well.
Right. So, Anthea, there's a comment from Joel, whom I'm sure you know well.
Yes.
You've appeared on his show. Yeah, he says he missed hearing your speeches, and Joel is
Hi,
not the only
Joel.
one. I think a lot of us. I mean, I definitely do, and I'll get to that in a while as well. So, I think one of the things I should have mentioned when I was introducing you is I don't know. I was thinking about this just now. Is there anybody in the public sphere who has been a better or more prominent advocate of mental health in Singapore? And I struggle to think, maybe there isn't, but definitely for sure you are one of the most prominent ones.
Thank you.
I would like to thank you for that. So one more question on the NMP. Because you mentioned this as well, the legitimacy, right? So do you think the lack of apart from the undemocratic nature, which I agree. I have some thoughts on this. Maybe I'll share after you answer this question. So, do you think the lack of transparency is another problem with the legitimacy of?
Yeah. Well, is having a single one-party dominant parliament a problem? Is not knowing that every single member of a GRC actually has majority of the vote.
Right. Is
that a problem?
So
right?
all of these are problems. It's part of the larger problem. That's what you're saying, right? Yeah.
In an ideal democracy, right, we would definitely raise that as problems.
Right.
So I think the lack of transparency. In talking about this as a larger issue, I would actually want to say that one of the reasons why I decided to say yes the second time, I'm being invited, Walid, was that I thought to myself, first of all, I dug a bit more and I realized that in bicameral systems, there are the House of Lords, right? And there are even the party list system in the likes of Philippines and all of that, where the individual, may not be elected, right? It could be appointed. So in some ways, even though we are unicameral, which means that we are actually a single parliament system, it is a parliamentary innovation of sorts. So I decided to see it that way. But the second reason, more importantly, is that when we look at our GRC system, right, especially the larger ones, we don't know for sure that every single member of the GRC actually got more than 50% vote in their respective wards within the GRC, right? And yet those who did not get the more than 50% vote might because of being part, not mine, it is factually,
Right.
because of being part of the GRC, is actually in Parliament, right? Representing the people, even though it wasn't a majority vote. So when I saw it from that perspective, I decided, I mean, we are obviously not a perfect parliamentary system. So why was I on this moral high horse to say that, no,
Right.
this is not democratic, I'm not going to
Right.
say yes, when actually it's kind of up to me, I think, when I
Right.
put in, right? And I think the scheme and the system is as good as what you show up for and
Right.
how you sort of put yourself forward.
Yeah.
So that's why I said yes. So I think to answer your question, the lack of transparency comes to, we need to make a decision. You mentioned earlier it was important for me as the NMP to have some distance, right, from the PAP MPs and also the opposition. And I think that speaks to a very important point, Walid, which is the non-partisanship.
Right.
Right? And if you look at the growing ills of partisanship around the world, I think there is a place in a parliamentary system for non-partisanship. And especially in a place like Singapore, to actually run as an independent it's almost next to impossible.
Right.
You know, even running as opposition candidates are really very challenging. So as an independent will be really quite impossible. So I think we can choose to continue to keep hacking the same or flogging the same horse to say that the last 30 years this has been an undemocratic system, or to see what do we need to change, right? If it was first mooted as a parliamentary innovation and now it's been going on for 3 decades, isn't it time for us to then update the system? I personally said that we should reinforce it. We are really looking at a very different kind of a landscape, right? Where, sorry, let me just make sure. Okay.
It's okay.
Where, you know, where social media has a tendency to create very polarized political affiliations, right? So I feel like the non-partisanship aspect of the merits of NMP, we need to enhance it. We need to reinforce it. We need to institutionalize it.
Right.
And strengthen it, actually.
Right.
And so in doing so, that would include having a more robust and transparent and more accountable selection process, right, than it is now. It would mean that, you know, there should be more participation in the nomination, the application process before it gets to the selection process. It would also mean to actually give more resources, right, to NMPs as well.
Right.
I think it's no secret that NMPs continue to be the only MPs in the chamber that are not given any resources in terms of legislative support or secretarial support. Right. So we are really, we're really, you know, volunteers in that respect. Yeah. So I would say that, you know, these are issues that we definitely have to address. There's a larger aspect of it, but even within the NMP system, I think we need to reframe how we want to strengthen the NMP system.
Right. I mean, I like the answer a lot. I think I largely agree with it. You know, if you think about it, the NMP scheme in its original form is, you can say that it is undemocratic, and in fact, it is quite an elitist scheme, right? A bunch of elites choose another bunch of elites, right?
Yes.
But an undemocratic innovation can have democratic effects, I think, and the NMP, I think, for the reasons you eloquently mentioned, I think it is something we need to strengthen, and through the same ways that you suggested as well. So thank you for that. I completely agree with that. So
and to
I
that
have
point, actually, can I just add in?
Sure.
I love how you said that it's actually quite elitist. You know, because it is a group of elites actually selecting another group of elites. Which is one of the things I think in the sort of reframe and the reform and the update that we need to do for the NMP system is also to not stick with the same profile, right? If a parliament is supposed to be a reflection of the people, then the parliamentarians should also be diverse, right? In terms of profiles. And I think that given that we're pretty solid in terms of the intellectuals and the elite, and actually increasingly we are seeing more of that in the opposition parties as well. I think that there is room for us to make sure that with NMPs that we appoint, that we invite and include those with lived realities in those areas that we want them to represent, right? Which is why I feel, I still feel disturbed that in this current slate of NMP, we don't have an arts practitioner. And it's always been. So I think that's a very important part of it. You have someone who has the lived experience, the practice and the experience to represent that sector, right? And in arts, I think you really do need to have an arts practitioner. So I think that's something that's important. I mean, what is to say that to represent the people and civic sector or the social services sector, we can't actually appoint someone from the vulnerable communities, right?
Yeah.
And be supported in a way that he or she or they can raise issues. I think that would be a great place to move towards, right?
Right. More working class representation, for instance, right? Yeah, I think that's another way we should really be looking at strengthening the NMP scheme. There's a question from Angie. I need to ask this because she's gonna be one of my future guests. She says she asked. I was gonna ask what passing on the baton means, but basically she said the issue with the NMP scheme now is that because it really depends on each individual MP's passions, right? So let's say now you didn't get selected for the second round, and what happens to the cause of mental health, right? So how do we ensure this continuity?
Such a great question, Angie. Yay! It actually was something that I was concerned about, and I must admit that I was obviously a little bit sad. I must admit when I saw that the questions on mental health in the PQs were not at the same level of intensity that I was hoping they would, especially in this COVID times, right? In these COVID times, it's so much more exacerbated,
for sure. 100%.
Yeah, the mental health situation that we're living with. So what I did and I could do was that we then continue a team of volunteers who are just amazing. We continued the work that we did last year. So we actually did a public consultation for Budget 2020's debate. The budget debate, and we got over 400 respondents. So we created a website. Then we decided, with this new NMP slate that did not seem to have anyone that was coming forward to push for mental health in a big way, we created a Facebook page, and since then we've actually been putting up sort of recommendations, policy initiatives, and all of that, and then we tag the MPs and the ministers. So that's one way that we are doing what we could. But I think Angie's raised
and I assume if you tag an MP, it would get far more traction than if I or Angie tag an MP, right?
Well, but probably. But I mean, yes and no, but they wouldn't know that it's necessary from me unless they read it, because it's under the SG Mental Health Matters banner. Also wanted to make this a platform where we can engage the public to be more informed and educated and aware of mental health policies and how actually policies really do impact us, right? On an everyday level where our mental health is concerned. So that's one way. The other way is I have not stopped engaging with the ministers and the relevant parties since I stepped down. So that's another. But it doesn't quite answer Angie's question, I guess. So it's a larger question that we all need to think about, right? I think the issue with the NMP system is that it's functional groups, it's sectoral, it's not even sort of cause-based or issue-based per se. Having said that, it's not to say that there are not MPs, both from the opposition and the PAP side. It's not that they are not raising mental health related issues. I suspect that because it's with all elected MPs, your first priority has to be what your residents want you to do, right?
Right.
Because that's your first priority and
Right.
loyalty. And yeah, and I think where it comes to issues like mental health or environmental concerns or arts, right? These issues may not tend to be, they're important, but they may not be in the urgent, they're in the important but not necessarily urgent quadrant, right? And so this type of issues, I think, merits a NMP representation.
Would you say that is true for mental health? I get for environment and arts, but do you think mental health is not urgent as well?
It's urgent for me, but
Right.
and for a lot of
For an
people,
elected MP, yeah. I got
but
you. Yeah.
I think this is the thing, though. I think it's probably a human construct as well, right? It's the human condition. I think everything that's invisible, it's always going to
Right.
be harder to put an urgency
Right.
to it.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
in our pragmatism, in our national religion of pragmatism, in terms of us sort of seeing how we can help another, we
Right.
tend to look at very tangible, practical
Right.
ways.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I
So
completely agree with you. Yeah.
yeah, so I think
Yeah.
because mental health, and this was one of the things I said in my first budget speech, actually, I think mental health is really like climate change. Because it's invisible, even though it actually affects every single one of
Right.
us in every aspect of our life, right? And also affects, the entire government in terms of how we design policies. It's invisible. So until
Right.
something kicks in, it's hard to garner the attention.
Right. Thank you for that, and I hope everyone learned what our national religion is after this session. Okay, so I have two questions on your specific contributions in Parliament,
Oh,
and I think they were really important, well, to me, and I think to the national discourse. So the first one was on POFMA, and I
yeah.
think that was an extremely brave vote that you took. So I was wondering, was there any backlash after that vote? And I think Nazat asked earlier as well. Do you get backlash online, or maybe even from the government, or not? I mean, obviously there won't be any strong arm tactics or anything, but were there whispers, or was there, "Hey, I'm disappointed in you," something of those, the conversations of those nature? And what was your opposition to POFMA based on? Why would you change your views in light of the pandemic, for instance, where there's a lot of fake news going on about, or would you say nothing has changed with regards to your principal objection?
Yeah, so those are really great questions. And I think so. My vote was an abstention, right?
Yeah.
That in itself got some backlash from
Yeah.
citizens. Obviously, I abstained on the vote, which I personally think may speak louder than a straight out no. Actually, because I think it hopefully, in terms of my abstention, it hopefully demonstrates the non-partisanship of the NMP system, right? In not following the ruling party,
Right.
Which clearly I could have, and there are other NMPs who voted with the ruling party, but also the maturity of a robust and thoughtful debate, right, on the merits of the bill. Right. And so I want to just put it out there that, and so when I sit on the maturity of a robust and thoughtful debate on the merits of the bill, I'm saying that don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? And what I mean by that is that I did not disagree with the intent of the bill, right? Which obviously I couldn't, because why would I disagree that online falsehood can cause harm, right? Which is actually the legislative intent of the bill.
Right.
I mean, online falsehood, as we all know, can distort, can demean public debate, right? And all that. And we all know it can incite polarization, populism, and all of that. So I clearly was in favor of a legislative intervention, right, to this this growing ill, actually, in terms of misinformation, fake news, and all of that. I also agree and appreciate that the government has obviously a responsibility, right, to protect this whole sort of social cohesion and harmony and the integrity of public institutions. I think it's clear that that's important, right, for a sort of a stable society and all of that. So all of that meant that I did not disagree and oppose the intent of the bill, right, particularly the legislative intent of the bill, but I disagree with the far-reaching powers, right, that were granted to the government with online communication, which may be used intentionally or unintentionally to suppress, or chill debate for political purposes. And that was why I was very specific in not just sort of just abstain from a vote, but actually wanted to put forth an entire amendment motion. Right. That was really hard work. My goodness.
I can imagine.
Really big San. Which is why I actually agree with Shan when Minister Shan Mungam said, the NMPs, I appreciate the effort, especially since they're not lawyers. And I wonder whether that was actually trying to be sarcastic, but I did say in the speech, I said, well, I appreciate, and the minister is right, we're not lawyers, which means that, it's really double, triple the effort we have to put in, and galvanizing a community of lawyers and community leaders to help us, right? So that's why I focus more on the amendment, on the specific areas. And I can share a little bit. I don't want to go into too much detail, but the three things that I really strongly opposed was that given that it was a two-factor test on both whether the statement is false as well as whether it actually then diminish, public confidence or threaten public confidence, I felt that this were not clearly spelled out, right, to the lay person. And therefore that's going to create a whole psychological climate that is one of fear, right? And that's going to obviously then not actually help in building trust and a sort of compact that we need actually. That and also it wasn't clear in the bill that because it's all given to the minister, it could be very subjective, right? It was so
absolutely.
I mean, the way it was described was so imprecise, was so subjective, and I'm like, okay, someone that's got on a bad day, just deem this to be false and threatening public confidence. So can we then ask and put it in the bill that we must get the minister to publicly justify why the statement is false and how does this statement threaten public confidence? And just wanted that to be built in. Obviously they didn't take the amendments, but I think the principle of it had been adopted. One of the things we were actually saying to put in place the principles of the act, right? Which is not a precedent. It was done for the Gambling Act anyway, the Casino Act. And this is to say that if there is a statement that's made as an opinion or as a satire, right, that shouldn't be taken as that is a false statement, right? So all that stuff. The other part that I was really concerned about was that the appeals process wasn't clearly stated as it would be swift and it would be low cost. Then I'm like, I don't know, how is this gonna help the ordinary citizen, right? And but also more importantly for me was NGOs. Right, because NGOs, we very often would rely on first-person account from, the folks that we work with, and so, and it's not like we would have access to public information to ascertain and verify what is being said, right? But our role is to support folks that come to us, no? So that's another part of it, and then of course the independent oversight, lah. I don't think it should all be resting with a minister for something like that. So that's why my opposition was also for an independent council to be established, which I think
independent committee.
Yes.
Independent committee.
Yeah, and it has the added advantage of obviously also educating, because we all realize that the only real antidote, right, to
Yeah.
falsehood is actually a more informed,
Right.
engaged, digitally more literate,
Right.
public.
Critical public. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So that must be the long game that we're actually working towards. Was there any backlash? Obviously, we were invited to the Ministry of Law office the moment we filed the motion. It was there was obviously the effort to try to clarify the stance of the government in this bill to us, and
I
I
see.
appreciate
Okay.
all of that. I appreciate all of
Right.
that. I also did commend them for coming up with the first in the world kind of innovation, legislative innovations like the correction order and direction,
Right.
because that's the first in the world, right? So
Right. Right.
I appreciate that we are always constantly sort of thinking out of the box, but
Right.
I also tried to do my bit since there was the clarification on the part of the government.
Right.
There was also the clarification and the attempt on my part to say, well, if you actually put up the amendment on your part, then on this
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
then we don't have to file the motion. Then it can be coming from the government, right?
Right.
So there was a little bit, of course, of that negotiation. I think with this bill, I'm pretty sure I'm not. I mean, as some of my well-meaning friends would say, not just this bill but other bills, I definitely would not be seen as a favorite lah. And some might say I was a troublemaker MP to some of the ministers and ministries.
Right.
And backlash from the public, not at all, not for this. For another one, yes. Yeah, for
Okay.
another issue, yes. For this was actually a lot of.
Can I ask which issue was that? Or
the question I raised on the apology.
okay. So which is the next
I'm sure
topic
you're gonna
we're
ask.
talk
Yes,
about?
I'm sure you're gonna ask.
That was gonna be my question. So, but yeah, before that, I didn't know you were on a first name basis with Minister Shanmugam. But okay, good.
Yeah,
Good
actually,
to know.
I want to be fair to Sean, right? Sean is actually a really really good guy to talk to. I mean, he has a public persona and in Parliament, and I think the whole sort of senior council persona. But on a one-to-one, he's actually open to listening, right? I mean,
Right.
Having said that, obviously he's also very principled. He's
Right.
also a very strong a strong minister, right?
Right.
So his views are very strong, and so
Right.
but
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that's good to know. So I think there was another abstention. I'm not going to ask about this, but there was another abstention that was really, I think a lot of courage. The town council, the motion against WP. Yeah, I think both you and Walter did that. So thank you for that. I
you.
definitely appreciate the POFMA actions. The actions related to POFMA that you undertook. So thank you for that. What a lot of people, well, I think a lot of people know, but some people do not realize is that you are responsible for one of the most iconic moments
Maybe
in
you shouldn't
Singapore.
let the cat out the bag.
In Singapore's parliamentary history, at least recent parliamentary history, right? You were the one who asked the question about that got a non-apology from Minister Jo Teo, right? So, what do you now with 1 year, 1 year later? So
Yeah,
and
exactly.
everything that has gone exactly 1 year, right? So, what do you feel? What do you feel about that? What do you feel about that non-apology, and what do you feel about the entire tone? Because I personally felt it was such a, first of all, it was a strange answer, right? I mean, you don't wait for somebody to ask for an apology. I mean, secondly, also, it's almost as if, I don't know what it was. Was it the stress of the situation, or did she display like she was out of touch with what a lot of people were saying? What was it? So, what was your assessment? Because you were at the forefront of things.
Again, I must say, it wasn't what I had hoped that Joe would. I definitely didn't expect that response from Joe at all. But I want to set some context, and I think, that whole response from her has taken a life of its own. Like you said, many people might not even know that I was involved, and maybe I should have kept it that way. Not that I need to make any more of the mug list of ministers and the government ministries. But I want to set it in context, right? You are absolutely right, Walid. I think to be fair, and let's make sure we are fair. Of course, hindsight is perfect, but I also want to say, since I was there, this was in the parliamentary session in early May, right? We were just a month into circuit breaker. The outbreak in the dorms was just horrendous, was scary. I personally myself was involved on the ground with a collective of NGOs for the migrant workers. And it was actually harrowing. I mean, in fact, if I was going to describe it, I mean, it was prescient as well, because I initiated this collective, on a WhatsApp group chat, right, in February, right, not realizing it was going to be that bad, but we were realizing that we need to support the migrant workers with the COVID-19 situation. It was harrowing. It was almost like a humanitarian crisis, right, and that the efforts that the ground folks were doing were really like a humanitarian effort. And I was also directly, because I know many migrant friends, right? And I was also hearing directly from them, the condition, the situation, and all of that. And some were not even given the support like sanitizers or masks, and the food was obviously such a major issue at the time. I mean, to be fair, until the army came in, it was really, quite scary, quite harrowing. And I was, at the same time, I was still having to be debating these 4 budgets, right? So it was quite a lot. But I was definitely feeling very strongly that the situation was such that they were locked in. And I would say they were locked in, right? Because they were locked in. It wasn't even just a lockdown. They were locked in their dorms. In a lot of ways, because of the how fast the disease was spreading, to protect us, right? To protect the community.
Yeah.
They were not being let out to protect us. And I don't know about you, it was very hard for me to take that, right? Because they have nowhere, and the conditions in the dorms.
Yeah.
10 to 20 per room. I mean, there's no way they would have been, they will be infected, right? There's just no way. And knowing also that at the time, many research experts and medical experts were coming to me to say, Anthea, there are repercussions, even though they're young and there's no fatality risk, there would be repercussions and stuff. It was very hard for me to take, right? And then when I dug a bit further, Walid, I realized that the Foreign Worker Foreign Employee Dormitories Act, right, the FEDA, that was enacted in 2015, actually did stipulate that the dormitories must be built for a pandemic, right? And so there was obviously, maybe this is obviously, too unprecedented, so we didn't actually provide enough. Anyway, all of that together, I'm just trying to set the context.
Right.
I felt that, we actually as a people, as a country, should appreciate, but also to say sorry, right? Because they are actually being locked in. And so should the government, right? That's why I raised the issue. I raised, with all that context, I did set that context. And I want to clarify, I did not direct the question at Joe, right? I did not. I directed the question to all the ministers who stood up to do the ministerial statement relating to COVID-19. I wasn't the only MP who asked many questions relating to the migrant workers and dorms. But after the ministerial statement were given, I felt like my questions were not adequately addressed, including the question I raised about whether we would consider a commission of inquiry, right, given the outbreak. And so I decided to raise my hand and I asked this question kind of on the fly. So yeah, I mean, to go back to your question, I was not expecting that response from Joe for sure, but nor was I, though, I must say, expecting that the government would apologize though, right? But I was certainly hopeful that we could at least acknowledge that we could have done better, right? Whether in peacetime, the way we have the housing arrangement for our migrant workers, or even in sort of the management of the the crisis, even at that time, that we could have done better. We all know now that our Prime Minister did acknowledge that eventually in one of his statements to us. And as you know now, policies are in place to improve the space, right? And the living arrangement for our workers. So I know that I definitely got backlash.
Okay.
I definitely did. There was
Right.
and I would
How
say
come?
that
As in, of what nature? Or
so I had hate mail. I had
wow.
trolls, and I had pro PAP groups, which I was actually quite sad to see. That was actually the first time, I will admit something which is a bit passe. It was the first time I knew the term internet brigades. I actually encountered trolls.
Right.
And I realized some accounts were really strange, right? And they were living strange, sometimes expletives, sometimes strong remarks, and some actually even resorted, as always, if they cannot get me to bait me to respond, they resorted to misogynistic remarks lah. But I wasn't actually aware of all this, right? It was actually friends who were concerned, and then because they were concerned, they didn't realize that by sending me the link, they are actually sharing with me what I didn't know, because I don't follow the different groups and all of that, right? That's when I knew that there was some pro PAP groups who were actually putting some posts and all of that were very jarring.
Right. Yeah, but thank you for speaking for the vulnerable. And I mean, it is unfortunate, right, that you got whatever you got, and hopefully we'll move to a place, I don't know whether it's possible in the age of social media, where that doesn't happen for people who speak out on controversial stuff. And even so, I don't even think that what you said was too controversial. But just on the COVID-19, and this is just a comment, I don't know if you have any thoughts on it. I think definitely on the migrant workers, it was. I think the government has done pretty well in managing COVID-19, but for the dormitories, I think it was a failure. But I think it wasn't just a governmental failure. I think a societal as well. I get that the response and the mobilization, by the CMSC, for instance, COVID-19 Migrant Support Coalition, right? So I think the response was good. But one of the most telling things was the dormitories hardly became an election issue. And to me, that tells me, if the opposition themselves didn't bring this up, right, it tells us, right, that maybe people are not too interested in it, and it tells us that's why this thing happened in the first place, right?
Exactly.
Because I think it's we really should take a good hard look at ourselves as a society, not just the government. Yes, the government for sure, but also for us.
I'm so with you there, Walid. I'm so with you there, because actually every time I spoke out on migrant workers, I mean, through the 2 years in Parliament, or almost 2 years in Parliament, I was very fortunate. I get very affirming remarks and comments, right? But whenever I speak up on migrant workers, that's when I get really So you are absolutely right. There is still there's still some way for us to go as a society, and absolutely by no means is it just the government's responsibility. It is actually both. Right, the government is going to go with what the society wants, right?
Absolutely,
because many times I've been told, I've been told in Parliament as well, when I spoke up and asked for some support with the GST increases, I was actually rebutted to say that we must make sure that citizens are the ones who get this support measures, right? And so that's obviously that need to go with the majority sentiments, right? So we have to be the one to be responsible for that. But at the same time, in a place like Singapore, I think the government also role model how we should
for sure. They are thought leaders, right? A lot of times Yeah, definitely. So it's already 50 minutes. So just one final question. I mean, this was really a very enjoyable conversation. So what is it that you couldn't do as an activist that you could do as an NMP? And vice versa, right? So, and I'm sure now your profile as an activist is different, right? Because you're a former NMP, like you
Yes.
call Minister Shan, and you are in. So I'm sure, as I said, you can.
Not that he actually necessarily likes me. I'm not saying that.
No, no,
I wouldn't know.
I'm not saying. So, I'm sure you said you are still in contact with the ministers, right? From time to time, at least you send them, and probably you are more likely to get a response now than 5 years ago, probably. I
Yes.
assume,
Yes.
right? Yeah. So
Absolutely.
do you see any difference between being an activist and NMP?
I think I was actually an activist NMP, right? So I don't think the way, well, certainly the way I live my life, and the way, I went out to the public and I still have my trees, whether it was when I was in NMP, I was an NMP or not. So I think as someone, I think in terms of changing my life, there was no change in my life. But I think you're absolutely right. So very spot on, Walid. I think I don't think as an activist, I would be able to get the commitment from the government to do a whole of government review of mental health policies, like I was actually responded to in my budget debates last year, right? And that has since, I think also exacerbated by COVID. That's all coming through, right? I mean, there's still a lot more to be done, obviously, but we've never had this much focus at the governmental level. But more heartening is that whole of government interagency effort, right? So that I don't think anyone as an activist can do that, really. It's just not humanly possible, and maybe not even structurally possible, right? And so I think that's my own personal experience. Then if you think about it, obviously as an activist, you'll never be able to sort of push a bill like Walter Woon did, right? With the maintenance of parents. I also think that because of what Kanwaljit Soin, who I love dearly, because she actually initiated the family violence bill, is actually the reason why we have the lights of POHA, right? The protection against harassment.
Online,
So I think as an activist, really, one big reason why I decided to say yes to the NMP invitation was also because structurally, I mean, you can do super good work on the ground, but on the ground you will realize at some point you hit a wall because there are structural issues that as ground activists you just cannot change.
Right.
And you need policies to enable that work to become better, right? So I think Kanwaljit's Kani's bill on the family violence really set a whole series of things going, right? Very substantive changes. Even Xiao Yan, who was your last NMP, right? The way she spoke up for the youth, right? I think contributed a large part to the whole SG Youth Action.
Right.
So those kind of very systemic level type of shift, I think it's really quite hard to do as an individual activist.
Right.
You can, I mean, if you have a body like Aware, and even Aware, it's been a long game, but I think in the parliament, it definitely gives you the advantage. And then as you said, I think, now that I've had the NMP experience, and that sort of that mark, that chop, it's easier for me to go to the ministers now to sort of share some of the challenges and suggest some of the possible solutions and engage with them that way, and it's usually well responded to, and maybe even better responded to since I'm not sharing this in public now.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. But it's only possible because of your experience in parliament, right?
Yes. And so I think that's the other thing that I think which I felt was the and I find it to be such a privilege to serve, right? I mean, I still think that every time I talk about NMP, though, Walid, it's always with so much immense gratitude, because it's such a deep privilege to serve that way. And it's not about just, obviously that was very important to sort of be able to sort of, bring the voices that need to be heard in Parliament. But it's also the other way around, right? It's actually to bring the understanding, a much deeper understanding of policy making,
Right.
back down to the ground, so that we then know as a civil society how to then make change. That is not always a binary face-off.
Right.
Sometimes you have to, sometimes you have to stand out
Right,
because
right,
they're too polarized. But I think, there are ways to negotiate that. And until we understand how it's being done, it's hard to know what is the best way to get a policy change, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I think that's
Yeah.
been very valuable.
Thank you so much, Anthea. I always end off with this question so that
Yeah.
we end on a conciliatory note. I'll amend the question slightly for you. So I always ask, if it's a PAP MP, I'll ask who's the favorite opposition, and opposition I'll ask who's the favorite PAP MP. So I'm gonna ask, who's your favorite PAP MP other than Louis Ng and Taman, because that's everybody's favorite. And who's your favorite opposition MP as well?
So Louis will always say that I used to have his back, and now he doesn't have anyone.
Right.
Because I literally used
I
to
think
sit
on
behind him.
many issues, right? The Rohingyas, and I mean a lot of overlap, right?
Yeah, we do. And so definitely, I have a lot of time for him. And I mean, Daman it's how can anyone not like Daman? My favorite PAP MP, it's hard to choose because actually when you get to know, talk to them one-to-one, many of them really do come with, a really huge sort of huge amount of passion to serve. I always say that this minister is my favorite because obviously, because he got me, he heard me, and he actually initiated. And this is Ikang, right? Minister Ong Ikang, when he was still education minister. And so all the hustling and all of that, making sure mental health education is compulsory, which it is this year. Yay!
Yeah.
Another reason to make him my favorite. He came to me in the tea room and asked me to tell him more. And then he actually went as far as then arranging to meet me. And I thought he was going to just meet me one-to-one for me to tell him more. He actually cleared his diary 2 weeks from when he said he was going to meet me. I thought it was going to be 2 months. He gave me his lunchtime. I went to his office, and then there he was. He's actually arranged a whole group of senior directors from MOE to also meet me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, so, that's impressive. Yeah.
And he said that I make sense, and I come from, I brought some good ideas and all of that. And so on that front, he is a favorite from the point of, supporting me in pushing, this cause, right? So opposition has to be Pritam lah.
Okay, I should say other.
Yeah. Only because we actually also have a cool sort of friendship, right? From those time talking about different things and all of that. So it would be Pritam, and I was especially proud of him, I guess, in the way he actually dealt with the whole issue with Raisa. And I'm a leadership coach, right?
Right. Yeah, so, I read your post on that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's really take off everything that a good leader should be, right? In terms of empathy leadership, in terms of authentic leadership, in terms of he ticked off a lot of those boxes.
Right.
But he's not performative. This is actually
exactly. I think people can see through.
Yeah.
Right. People can generally see through when somebody is faking it versus somebody is genuine. So thank you so much, Anthea, not just for coming on, but I rarely ever say this to politicians. I don't know whether you consider yourself a politician, but thank you for your service and for everything that you've done. And let's have Teh Tarik in real life soon. Okay.
Yes, we will, definitely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, bye-bye.